Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are going to do something truly fascinating. We're going to conduct a cold historical autopsy on two of the most terrifying concepts in all of human history, Satan and hell. We're going to completely strip away all the centuries of pop culture, the Renaissance paintings, the horror movies, and we're going to use pure historical logic to see exactly how these ideas were actually built from the ground up.
So where did hell and Satan actually come from? It's a pretty bold question, right? Because most people, and honestly, this includes a lot of practicing Christians, simply assume that the concept of an absolute cosmic evil and a fiery place of eternal torment have just been baked into the Bible right from the very first page. We naturally kind of think these entities have just always been there. But as we're about to see, history tells a completely different and honestly deeply surprising story.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have this huge modern assumption that cosmic evil and eternal fire have just always existed in the text. But look at the historical reality here. The original ancient Jews actually had absolutely no concept of an evil anti-god, and they definitely had no fiery underworld waiting for them. These ideas literally did not exist in the original religion. Instead, they were gradually smuggled in over centuries through foreign influences, some pretty wild theological mutations, and constantly shifting political needs.
To understand how this massive shift happened, here is our structural roadmap for today. First, we're going to unpack the great biblical misconception. Second, we'll trace Satan's completely unexpected career path. Third, we'll explore the invention of hell. And finally, we'll look at the recipe for fear that put the whole shebang together. Section 1. The Great Biblical Misconception. God's Monopoly. To truly wrap our heads around this topic, we actually need to hit a giant reset button on everything we think we know about the God of the Old Testament. In those original texts, the concept of Satan as the ruler of hell and the ultimate enemy of God, it simply does not exist. Why? Because the Old Testament God, Yahweh, does everything himself. Listen to this incredible quote from Isaiah 45:7. Yahweh says, "I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil." God is taking responsibility for both the good and the bad. There was zero need for a cosmic enemy because God held a total, absolute monopoly on all the forces in the universe. Section 2. Satan's career path from angel to villain.
So, if Satan wasn't always the ultimate villain, how exactly did he get the job? Well, his evolution is basically a four-phase corporate career path, and he actually started right at the very bottom. Let's see how this builds. We're going to track his mutation across four distinct historical eras. We'll start back in the Old Testament era, move through a period of massive foreign influence between the 6th and 4th centuries BC, jump ahead to the intertestamental period in the 2nd century BC, and finally arrive at the 1st century AD.
In Phase 1, the Old Testament era, we run into the term Ha-Satan. Now, notice it's not a proper name starting with a capital letter. In the original Hebrew, it is a common noun with a definite article. It literally means the accuser or the prosecutor. It's a job title, guys. In texts like the Book of Job, Ha-Satan is really just an angel on God's payroll. He sits on the heavenly council acting almost like a state prosecutor or a secret agent. He roams the earth testing human loyalty, but he's only doing God's dirty work, and he never ever acts without God's full permission. He isn't evil, he's just doing his job.
Then comes Phase 2. This is a massive turning point triggered by profound historical trauma, the Babylonian captivity. Between the 6th and 4th centuries BC, the Jews were living under the Persian Empire, and the Persians practiced a religion called Zoroastrianism, which was strictly dualistic. They had a good god of light, Ahura Mazda, who was locked in constant combat with a completely equal evil god of darkness, Angra Mainyu. And the Jews were absolutely fascinated by this Persian virus. I mean, think about it. It is a massive psychological relief to believe that God isn't the one causing your suffering, but rather some independent dark forces to blame. This right here was the seed of the modern Satan.
Moving into Phase 3, the 2nd century BC, we enter what scholars call the intertestamental period. During this time, Jewish writers really started getting creative, crafting what we might basically call ancient apocalyptic sci-fi, like the Book of Enoch. They needed to explain why there was so much suffering in the world, so they took older myths and built a brand new narrative. Step 1. Angels betray God. Step 2. They come down and sleep with human women. Step 3. They are violently cast down from heaven as punishment. Just like that, God's totally loyal prosecutor, Ha-Satan, has mutated into the fallen leader of a rebellious demon army.
And finally, Phase 4. We've reached the 1st century AD and the New Testament. By this point, Satan's evolution is completely finished. He is no longer an employee of God. He has been promoted all the way up to the ultimate cosmic villain. He is now called the ruler of this world, the father of lies, and he's even depicted as a giant, terrifying dragon. From a pure narrative perspective, the early Christians absolutely needed this fully formed villain, because their savior, Jesus, needed a definitive, powerful antagonist to fight against and ultimately defeat.
Section 3. The Invention of Hell, a Dark Renovation.
But hey, a Lord of Evil is going to need a dark kingdom, right? Well, just as Satan evolved, the whole concept of the afterlife underwent a massive and quite horrifying architectural renovation. To the original ancient Jews, the idea that God would actually create a place to eternally torture people for what they did during a measly few decades on earth was utterly absurd. They didn't believe in a heaven or a hell at all. As Ecclesiastes 9:5 clearly tells us, the dead know nothing. In Sheol, where you are going, there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom. Sheol wasn't a torture chamber. It was simply the underworld, this dark, quiet mass grave of dust where literally everyone, from kings to beggars to murderers, simply went to sleep. No fire, just silence.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happened in the time of Jesus. When Jesus warns people of judgment in the New Testament Greek texts, he actually doesn't use our modern English word hell. He uses the word Gehenna. And historically, Gehenna, or the Valley of Hinnom, was a literal physical place right outside the walls of ancient Jerusalem. It had a really dark history of pagan child sacrifice, so the Jewish people cursed it and turned it into the municipal garbage dump. So actual fires burned there constantly to incinerate everyday trash and the discarded bodies of executed criminals.
So let's put that into perspective. When Jesus talked about bodies burning in Gehenna, he was speaking within a very specific historical Jewish context. It was a vivid metaphor for total destruction. The warning essentially meant, look, if you don't change your ways, the Romans are going to kill you and throw your body on the burning dump outside the city. It was all about complete and total annihilation. But as Christianity started spreading into the Greco-Roman world, it completely collided with Greek philosophy. Specifically, it collided with the Platonic idea of an immortal soul that can never ever be destroyed. The ancient Jews did not believe in a soul that could be separated from the body, but the Greeks absolutely did.
And right here is the dark mathematics that created our modern nightmare. Early Catholic bishops, brilliant thinkers like Tertullian and Augustine, combined these two totally different worldviews. They took Jesus' highly localized earthly metaphor of a garbage dump fire, and they added the Greek philosophical concept of an indestructible, immortal soul. If you throw a soul that literally cannot die into a burning fire, what do you get? You get eternal conscious torment. They logically engineered an underground torture chamber that never ever ends.
Section 4. The Recipe for Fear, a Historical Mashup.
So we can now see exactly how all these totally disparate historical threads were woven together to create a single modern myth. That popular pop culture image in your head right now, the red horned devil with a pitchfork standing over boiling cauldrons deep underground, it isn't actually biblical at all. It is a deliberate, massive historical mashup. It's a blend of Persian, Zoroastrian dualism, Greek mythology regarding Tartarus and the immortal soul, all of it heavily visualized centuries later by medieval literature like Dante's Divine Comedy. The early church adopted this terrifying mashup because, quite frankly, it was the absolute perfect tool for mass control, enforcing widespread obedience through the ultimate fear.
Which leaves us with a truly profound question to ponder today. If our greatest, ultimate fears, ideas that have quite literally haunted humanity for millennia, were actually just patched together from foreign myths and adopted as perfect tools for mass control and obedience, what other deeply held beliefs in our world today are actually just a trick of history? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating historical autopsy with me. Keep asking questions, keep examining the sources, and I'll see you in the next explainer.